game is called Love It or Leave It. Bold offseason moves, courtesy of ESPN.com's Aaron Schatz. Hey, Tim Hasselbeck, he says the Lions should trade for Myles Garrett. You love it or you leave it?
I kind of love it. Look, you can't have enough pass rushers. I mean, watch the Super Bowl. I mean, just the reality is he's still a difference maker. He would make that defense, which is already invested in some pass rushers, even better. And look, they're a contending team, and Myles Garrett wants to be on a contending team. I think it ends up being a pretty good fit. I think he'd have a big impact and gets Detroit that much closer to their ultimate goal.
Lions and Commanders are the two teams you sort of hear a lot in the rumor mill. We'll see if it goes that way. Hey, Bartholomew, another one he's suggesting. The Raiders should trade up to take Shedeur Sanders. You love it or leave it?
I love it because you have to take big swings, especially when you talk about this may be the only division in football that's ever had 4 Hall of Fame coaches in it at one time. And then also you talk about the other 3 teams within the division was in the playoffs. So who are you going to put behind center? You have to take a chance on hoping that you can find a franchise quarterback. If not, you're going to find yourself at the bottom of the division over and over again.
Tim Hasselbeck.
Brady's his basic football guy daddy.
Yeah, Brady would be there to be sort of his godfather, if you will. Tim, we'll dive into this deeply when you're up here this week. What do you think of this on first blush?
Well, I don't like it because of the amount that it would take to move up. A lot of people are saying that he could end up being number 1 overall. To move that much is way too much. Even if you're moving 2 or 3 spots up, I think you're giving up too much. And I don't really think that the delta between Shedeur and this next group of quarterbacks, Tyler Shuck, Kyle McCord, Jackson Dart, I don't think it's going to be that significant through the evaluation process for everybody. So I think giving up so much to move just a few spots in the first round when you really don't know, to me, it just doesn't feel like it's worth it.
All right, let's come back to this one here because I want to get to what is clearly the story of the NFL moment. But let's bookmark the Shedeur piece of it because I want to come back to that. But Graziano, let's get to the Matthew Stafford of it. I'm on my vacation. I'm trying to keep up with what the heck is going on. It's very hard to do. So one of the suggestions that Aaron Schatz made was the Rams should trade away Matt Stafford and bring in Sam Darnold. Let's just live in the Stafford of it for a moment. You're headed to Indy.
Yeah.
What is going on with Stafford and the Rams?
The Rams and Stafford are trying to figure out a new contract, and it's still possible they do and that they keep him there. But if they don't, then I believe that they will trade him, and there are teams that are going to be interested. And, Darnold would be one of the possible pivots if they could get a deal done with Minnesota, or if Minnesota lets Sam Darnold hit the open market. So we're getting to Indy today. A lot of the front office people are getting there today. Tomorrow, Matthew Stafford. This dragged all through the offseason last year. I don't get the impression that the Rams want that to happen again. I think they'd like an answer sooner rather than later, i.e. sometime in the next couple of days, so they can figure out what their quarterback plan is if it's not Stafford. So this is something you could see new. You can't officially do a trade until March 12th when the league year starts, but you could agree to the parameters of a trade, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was news on that at some point.
Didn't Stafford get traded in February last time, right?
Yes.
I mean, these things clearly happen. So Tim Hasselbeck, here's the part of this that I find fascinating. I can't prove, well, first of all, let's say this for sure. The Rams played the Eagles tougher than anybody else did in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And while I can't prove this statement, I believe if that game hadn't been played in a blizzard, they would have won. Stafford remains right now one of the, loosely 6 or 7 best quarterbacks in the NFL. The Rams are kind of this close. Why on earth are they considering trading him away?
Yeah, I don't know that this is necessarily their idea. It's probably Matthew Stafford looking around saying, I'm underpaid at the position right now, making that very clear to the organization, and the organization saying, look, you're 36 or 37, however old he is.
He just turned
saying,
37. He's 37, Tim, just turned it.
Go check out the market because, we love you. You've been a warrior for us. But, we also have to be careful because you're 37 years old. So, check out what the market is and then come back to us so that we can figure out if we can do a 5-year deal with you at 37 years old. That's what I think is happening. I don't think it's the Rams saying, hey, how can we reset at quarterback? I think it's more, hey, they're put in this situation. Now, they might have to do it if the market is really high for Stafford, which it potentially could be.
I understand that, but I mean, the Rams of all teams who are like the first ones to jump in on any trade and sign any free agent and all that stuff, if you're not paying this guy, who are you paying?
Well, they changed their model, right? Remember, it was F them picks, but now they've been building and drafting through the draft and building this team pretty good. The reality is, it makes a lot of sense because over the last couple of years, we've been hearing Matthew Stafford flirt with retirement. So really, that just tells you that he wanted some long-term security, and now he's looking at the market, looking at Jalen Hurts, looking at guys making $60 million, and he believes that he needs to get it. When, as a player that got paid old later in his career, considered the life expectancy, what it usually comes down to is 1 or 2 more years and guaranteed money and upfront money. So they're fighting probably for 1 or 2 years. Where you talk about if you send them to Minnesota. Minnesota is a place that has $59 million in salary cap space. So they can absorb a contract like that and give him what he wants to try and win in the short term, where the Rams are trying to go back and try and build in a long-term type of fashion. They've kind of been going year to year with Stafford. Right. And I think there's a sense now that maybe Stafford doesn't want to keep going year to year, that he'd like something like whatever. Tim said 5 years, maybe 3 year, 4 year, whatever length deal it is. He's supposed to make $27.5 million. That's less than half what you're talking about. You don't need to get to 60, but get me somewhere respectable, right? So I think that's where the push-pull is. And again, they could figure it out. The Rams and Matthew Stafford have been a very good marriage, and it could very well continue. But it sounds like it's going to be tougher to get to a resolution than it was last year when they just kind of took money from future years and moved it up into 2024 and guaranteed some. By definition, there's not as much to bring forward anymore. And why it makes sense for Minnesota is because Kevin O'Connell's there. So it's a familiarity. You're putting Stafford in Minnesota. Yeah. Okay. Because of familiarity. I think you can do a sign and trade with Sam Darnold, which would be a cheaper option. Sam Darnold's not going to ask for $60 million a year. He can't.
If you put Matthew Stafford in Minnesota next year, watch out. Right now, I would say that would become – I might go so far as to say I think that would become the team to beat in the entire NFC next year if Matthew Stafford – Darnold was good. Stafford is a whole other level of good and experienced and in that dome and everything else. Offense. We'll talk about them as we go. Okay, back to the basketball we go next because we got LeBron, we got Luka, we got the Lakers in L.A. How good did they look? Actually, how good did they look? Wait till you hear what Stephen A. thinks this team is capable of and who's responsible. That's on the way. Plus, season's been a complete flop in Philly. Should the Sixers sit their star for the season? Oh, what a mess. We're talking about it next. What a Monday. It's Get Up on ESPN.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các bạn nha. Mình sẽ giới thiệu cho các bạn về kênh của mình và những video của mình cho các bạn biết được là kênh của mình làm video sáng tạo nội dung về chủ đề gì. Video của mình sẽ làm xuyên suốt về chủ đề cắt dán này, mình sẽ cắt dán những sản phẩm như thế này cho các bạn xem. Còn đây là những sản phẩm mình đã hoàn thiện rồi, sẽ giới thiệu sơ qua cho các bạn xem những sản phẩm của mình và cách của mình tạo ra những sản phẩm như thế nào. Và để tạo ra được những sản phẩm đa dạng màu sắc như thế này và như thế này